I was getting evicted in front of my 6-year-old son when the most dangerous man I had ever loved walked back into my life. The landlord stood in the hallway of my Queens building, loud on purpose, holding my overdue notice like a trophy. Mrs. Alvarez from 3B had her door cracked open. 2 kids on the stairs were staring. Noah was clutching my hand so hard it hurt. "You are 3 weeks late, Claire. I am done being patient." My face burned. I wanted to disappear. Instead I lifted my chin and said, "You will get your money on Friday." He laughed. "That is what you said last Friday." Noah pressed against my side. I felt the shame hit fast, hot, familiar. But I did not break. I never broke where Noah could see. I got him downstairs, buckled him into the back seat of my beat-up sedan, and drove into Manhattan for the children's charity event I could not afford to mess up. I needed that check. I needed one clean night. Instead, the hotel looked like a cathedral built for people who had never had to count dollars at a gas pump. Crystal lights. Marble floors. Men in tailored suits who looked through me. I signed in, fixed my blazer, and told myself I could survive 4 hours. Then Noah spotted a toy airplane display near a roped-off corridor and slipped from my side before I could stop him. "Noah, wait." My heart slammed. He darted past a private security post, and one guard stepped forward with the kind of cold impatience rich places wear like cologne. Before he could touch my son, another voice cut through the hallway. "Do not." Low. Sharp. Final. I froze before I even turned around. Adrian Vale stood at the end of the corridor in a dark suit that probably cost more than my car. He looked older. Harder. Beautiful in the worst possible way. He lifted Noah with one arm like it was nothing, then his eyes found mine. And just like that, 5 years of silence snapped tight around my throat. I had spent years hiding my son from Adrian Vale. But the way he looked at Noah, then back at me, told me one thing immediately. He knew I was lying about something. He just did not know what yet. Adrian set Noah back on his feet, but his eyes stayed on me. Not warm. Not shocked. Worse. Precise. Like he was already pulling the last 5 years apart piece by piece. "Claire." He said my name like a fact he had never misplaced. My pulse went wild. I stepped forward fast, putting myself between him and Noah. He should not have come back here. My voice came out sharper than I felt. Adrian did not even glance at the security guard. "Leave us." One sentence. That was all it took. The guard moved. Of course he moved. Men like Adrian did not raise their voices. The world adjusted itself for them. Noah looked up at me, confused, then back at Adrian like he had found the one adult in the room who was not panicking. I hated that. Adrian's gaze dropped to the badge clipped to my blazer, then to the cheap sleeve I had ironed twice this morning so nobody would notice how worn it was. "You work here now?" he asked. I swallowed hard. "Tonight only." He gave the smallest nod, like he had just filed that away with everything else. "And the boy?" The question sliced clean. I grabbed Noah's shoulder. "My son." Adrian's face did not change, but something in the air did. Tighter. Colder. More dangerous. "I can see that," he said. What I asked was different. I felt the old fear rise fast. The one that had chased me through every unpaid bill, every school form, every night I checked the lock twice. "Our past was a mistake," I said. "Whatever you think this is, it is not your business." Noah tugged my hand then, looking up at Adrian with that open, impossible trust kids gave away too easily. "Are you the hotel king?" he asked. For one strange second, Adrian almost looked amused. Almost. He crouched just enough to meet Noah's eyes. Something like that. Then he stood and turned to the event manager walking toward us in alarm. "She stays," Adrian said. "On my authority." The manager blinked. Mr. Vale, there was a security breach and, I said she stays. My stomach dropped. I had been trying to get through one clean night. Instead, Adrian had just done the one thing I could not afford. He had decided I was not leaving. And when he looked at me again, calm and unreadable, I knew this was not over. It had barely started. By the time I got Noah settled in the staff lounge with crayons and a juice box, I already knew Adrian had done something dangerous. Not dangerous in the loud way. In the quiet way. The kind that changed a whole room without moving a single chair. When I stepped back into the main ballroom, every conversation felt thinner. Sharper. Men in black suits lowered their voices when Adrian crossed the floor. Women straightened. Staff moved faster. Nobody asked who was in charge. His presence answered that for them. I hated how familiar that feeling was. 5 years ago, I had mistaken it for safety. Tonight, it felt like a warning. You look pale, said Marisol, one of the event coordinators, as she shoved a tablet into my hands. That is Adrian Vale. When he says jump, people ask how high. I forced a breath. I noticed. Then I noticed something else. The giant digital display at the back of the room had shifted from charity branding to a sleek preview for the Vale Legacy Gala. The headline read like a threat in diamonds and gold. Succession. Alliance. Future. This was not just a fundraiser. It was a stage. And Adrian owned every inch of it. I was still staring when a woman in ivory stepped into my path like she had been designed to belong here. Tall. Polished. Expensive. Evelyn Cross. I knew her face from city magazines and donor boards. She smiled at me without warmth. You must be the emergency staff Adrian insisted on keeping. Her eyes dropped to my blazer, then lifted again. He has always had interesting lapses in judgment. Heat climbed my throat. I should have stayed quiet. Instead I said, then I guess tonight is full of surprises. Her smile thinned. Just remember where you are, Claire. Places like this can be very generous to women who know their place. Very cruel to women who forget it. I felt the insult land. Clean. Public. Deliberate. And then Adrian appeared beside us so suddenly even Evelyn paused. I looked at him, waiting for one clear sentence. One line. One small correction. He gave me nothing. His expression stayed smooth. Controlled. Untouchable. Evelyn, he said, offering her his arm as if the moment had not cut me open at all. She took it. Of course she did. And as they turned toward the center of the room together, polished and perfect under the lights, I understood the part one was supposed to play here. Not his past. Not his equal. Just the woman standing close enough to get burned. The next time Adrian Vale touched my life that night, it was to save me from being humiliated twice in 1 hour. I was resetting place cards near the back terrace, keeping my head down, telling myself I only had to survive until the final toast, when a middle-aged donor in a navy tux stopped too close beside me. I caught the bourbon on his breath before I caught the look in his eyes. You are the girl Adrian kept, he said, smiling like we were sharing a joke. My stomach turned. I stepped back. I am working. He reached for my wrist anyway. Not hard. Not enough to cause a scene. Just enough to remind me exactly how women like me got handled in rooms like this. Come on, he said softly. Do not look so offended. Men do not keep pretty strays around for nothing. Heat shot through me. Shame first. Then anger. I jerked my hand, but his grip tightened for one ugly second, and I heard myself say, sharp and shaking, let go. He did. Instantly. Not because of me. Because Adrian's voice cut across the terrace like a blade. Take your hand off her. The donor turned, annoyed at first, then pale. Adrian did not move fast. He did not need to. He just walked toward us with that cold, impossible control of his, and the whole air changed around him. Mr. Vale, the man started, forcing a laugh. This is a misunderstanding. Adrian stopped in front of us, eyes on the donor, not me. Your invitation is revoked. Quiet. Final. The donor blinked. Overstaff? Adrian's expression never shifted. Over disrespect. 2 security men appeared like they had been waiting for the signal. The donor opened his mouth again, thought better of it, and let them lead him away. I stood there with my pulse slamming and my skin still burning where he had touched me. Adrian looked at my wrist once, then at my face. Are you hurt? I hated the way my voice thinned when I answered. No, he stepped closer anyway. Not soft. Never soft. Just certain. Listen carefully, Claire. Nobody under my roof gets touched without my permission. The words should have made me furious. They did. They also made me feel something worse. Safe. I pulled my hand back and forced my chin up. I do not need your permission for anything. His gaze held mine, unreadable, dangerous, almost calm. That is where you are wrong. And I walked away before he could see how badly that shook me. Noah's cough started 10 minutes after Adrian told me nobody touched me without his permission. Like my body had not had enough panic for one night, now my son's lungs were tightening too. I found him in the staff lounge, small shoulders curled, one hand pressed to his chest, the other digging through his backpack with growing frustration. Mom, he whispered, already breathless, I cannot find it. The inhaler. My stomach dropped so hard it hurt. I tore through the bag, crayons, worksheets, snack wrappers, all of it useless. It is okay, I lied, because mothers lied like that when the truth would scare the child more. You are okay. He was not. His breathing turned thin and sharp. I grabbed my phone with shaking fingers, but before I could call the front desk, Adrian was already in the doorway. I did not hear him come in. I just felt the room shift. His eyes moved once, took in Noah, the open bag, my face, and he acted. Medical kit. Now, he said into his phone. No panic. No wasted motion. Just command. Then he crossed the room, crouched in front of Noah, and his voice changed. Lower. Steadier. Hey, buddy. Look at me. Slow breath in. Slow breath out. I should have hated how fast Noah listened to him. I should have hated the relief that nearly buckled my knees when the inhaler arrived and Adrian handed it to me before I even asked. After 2 puffs, Noah's breathing began to ease. I sat beside him on the couch, one hand on his back, trying not to shake. Adrian stayed close but not too close, watching with the kind of focus that made everything inside me feel exposed. Noah blinked up at him, still flushed, still tired, and managed a weak little smile. You really are the Hotel King. For 1 second, Adrian almost smiled back. Not the polished public version. Something smaller. Realer. Something like that, he said. Then Noah, because children had no instinct for self-protection, reached for Adrian's cuff and said, You make things feel safe. My chest tightened. Adrian looked at him too long. Then at me. And in the glass wall behind him, I caught another reflection. A dark-haired man in a tailored suit standing just outside the lounge, still as a shadow, watching the 3 of us like he had just seen something he was not supposed to see. The moment I saw Damien watching us through the glass, I knew the soft part of the night was over. By the time the charity event ended, the warmth Noah had pulled out of Adrian was gone again, buried under that cold, impossible control of his. I kept my head down, signed the last vendor's sheet, and told myself I only needed to collect my payment and get my son home. Then Marisol found me near the service hallway, tablet in hand, face tight. Claire, do not panic, she said, which of course made me panic. She showed me the complaint. Unprofessional conduct. Security disruption. Unauthorized child in restricted areas. My throat locked. That is absurd. I told your team Noah had nowhere else to go tonight. Marisol winced. I know. But the complaint came from a major donor circle. Finance froze your payment. Humiliation hit first. Then rage. Clean. Bright. Useless. I looked across the ballroom and saw Evelyn speaking quietly to two board members, elegant as poison. She did not even need to look at me. She already had. I got Noah to the car before I let myself check my phone. 3 missed calls. 1 voicemail from Noah's school. Tuition deadline. Final notice. Then a text from my landlord, rent goes up starting this week. New terms. Pay or leave. I stared at the screen so long it blurred. Someone had leaned on him. Someone with money. Someone who liked closing doors. Mom? Noah's voice was small from the back seat. Are we in trouble? I swallowed hard and started the engine, but a Blacktown car slid in front of mine before I could back out. Adrian stepped out like he had all the time in the world. I got out too fast, slamming the door behind me. Did you do this? I asked. He looked at me once, then at the cracked edge of my dashboard, the cheap booster seat, the whole thin skeleton of my life. I solved nothing yet, he said. But I can. I laughed once. Bitter. I am not taking charity from you. It is not charity. His voice stayed calm. I need someone to run my foundation events for the next few weeks. You need money. Take the job. I should have said no. I almost did. Then Noah coughed softly in the back seat, and my pride stopped mattering. Adrian held my gaze and delivered the final blow in one quiet sentence. Be at my estate office at 8 in the morning, Claire. Not if. Not please. And God help me, I knew before he turned away that I was going to show up. At 8 o'clock sharp, I walked into Adrian Vale's estate office and understood exactly how small he intended me to feel. The building did not look like a home or a company. It looked like a kingdom with better lighting. Black marble. Glass walls. Men in tailored suits speaking in low voices like mistakes cost millions. I kept my chin up anyway. I had dropped Noah at school, kissed the top of his head, and promised myself this was just work. Temporary. Survival. Then a man with dark hair and a colder smile stepped into my path before I reached the front desk. Damien Rousseau. The same man I had caught watching us through the lounge glass. He looked me over once, slowly, like he was assessing damage. You are early, he said. That usually means one of two things. Desperation or ambition. The insult landed exactly where he meant it to. I gave him my calmest voice. Then it is a good thing I am here for neither. His mouth barely moved. Women who get special treatment from Adrian rarely understand the cost until it is too late. My pulse kicked, but I did not look away. Then maybe you should warn the women who ask for it. That earned me the first real flicker in his eyes. Not respect. Interest. Dangerous in its own way. Before he could answer, I was led into a conference room where the staff was already assembled around a digital calendar packed with fundraisers, private dinners, and one event highlighted in gold. The Vale Legacy Gala. Succession Night. I felt the tension around that title immediately. This was not just a party. It was a battlefield in evening wear. Adrian entered without hurry, and the room shifted around him like gravity had changed. He did not greet me. He just began assigning responsibilities. Then, in front of everyone, he slid the gala lead straight to me. Silence hit the room so hard I could hear the projector hum. One woman actually blinked in disbelief. Damien's expression went flat. Mr. Vale, one executive said carefully, that event requires internal trust. Adrian did not even look at him. Then perhaps you should all prove you deserve mine. My stomach tightened. He had just done the worst thing he could do in a room like this. He had marked me. When the meeting ended, people moved around me differently. Stiffer. Sharper. Like I was already the problem. And as Damien stepped aside to let me pass, he leaned in just enough to murmur, "Being chosen by Adrian Vale does not make you safe, Claire. It makes you visible." I should have burned Noah's backpack the second Adrian Vale started looking at us like a puzzle he meant to solve. I was in Adrian's private office annex, sorting gala packets and pretending my hands were steady, when his assistant dropped a stack of folders on my desk and asked for the children's donor materials. Noah had spent the first hour after school in the corner with crayons and paper, quiet for once, drawing airplanes and castles while I worked. I told myself that was safe. Temporary. Then Adrian walked in without warning. The room tightened around him immediately. "Status update," he said, already scanning the schedules in my hands. I gave him the clean version. Dates. Vendors. Seating. Anything but the panic humming under my skin. He stepped closer to review a floor plan, and that was when a loose page slipped from Noah's backpack and drifted right to his shoes. My heart stopped before I even saw it. Adrian bent, picked it up, and studied the drawing in silence. It was childish. Bright. Harmless to anyone else. But in the center, Noah had drawn a silver ring with a black crest he had seen once in an old photo I had failed to hide well enough. The Vale's signet. Adrian's thumb stilled on the page. "Where did he see this?" he asked. I moved too fast, snatching the drawing from his hand before I could stop myself. Wrong. Move. I knew it the second his eyes lifted to mine. Cold now. Focused. "It is just a sketch," I said. My voice came out thin. Adrian did not blink. "Claire." One word. Enough to make my pulse jump. Noah looked up from the rug, innocent and smiling. "That is from the fancy ring in Mommy's box." I felt the blood drain from my face. Adrian turned slowly toward him. Then back to me. "How old is your son?" The question landed like a blade. I forced my mouth to work. 6. 6, he repeated, too calm. Too exact. Then he reached for the drawing again, not touching me, not raising his voice, somehow making it worse. "Interesting," he said. "Because I have started counting, Claire. And I do not like the answers." By the end of that day, Adrian had done the one thing I could not survive. He had started thinking. Not guessing. Not remembering. Thinking. The office emptied slowly after dusk, until the glass walls reflected more city lights than people. Noah was asleep on a small sofa in the adjoining room, one sneaker half off, one hand curled under his cheek, and I was still pretending to work because I could not risk being alone with Adrian and I could not risk leaving first either. He stepped into the doorway without sound. "You kept the ring." My fingers went still over the seating chart. I did not look up. "I kept a lot of things I should have thrown away." He came closer. I felt it before I saw it. That old pressure. That old pull. Dangerous because part of me still remembered what it was like to lean toward him instead of away. "You vanished," he said. No anger in it. Somehow worse. No explanation. No note. Nothing. I laughed once, short and bitter. "You do not get to ask for explanations, Adrian." That made him stop. I finally looked at him then. The city glowed behind him in cold lines of white and gold, turning him into exactly what he had become. Untouchable. "I needed you," I said, keeping my voice low so Noah would not wake. "And you chose silence." His jaw tightened. "That is not what happened." "Really?" I stood so fast the chair scraped. Because from where I was standing, it looked exactly like that. "You disappeared into your world, and..." I got the message. For the first time that night, something cracked through his control. "You think I let you go?" His voice dropped hard. You think I forgot you? My heart kicked once, violent and stupid. I should have stepped back. I did not. I think men like you always choose power first. The words landed between us. Sharp. Final. Adrian stared at me like he wanted to say something that would change everything. Instead he said, then you never knew me at all. We were too close. The air felt thin. One more inch and this would stop being anger and become something far worse. I hated that I still felt it. Hated that he did too. Then Noah coughed in his sleep, and the spell snapped. I turned first. I had to. But before I reached the sofa, Adrian said one quiet sentence behind me, calm again, almost cold. Someone lied to one of us, Claire. I just have not decided which one yet. The first time I saw the camera pointed at Noah, my whole body went cold. It happened outside his school 3 days after Adrian told me someone had lied to one of us. I was waiting by the curb with a paper cup of bad coffee and a head full of worse thoughts when a man across the street lifted his phone and held it too still for too long. Not texting. Not calling. Aiming. At my son. My pulse slammed. I crossed the sidewalk fast, but the second he saw me move, he turned and disappeared into the lunch crowd like he had never been there. By the time I reached the corner, he was gone. I stood there shaking, coffee spilled down my hand, while Noah tugged my coat sleeve and asked, Mom, are we late? I wanted to say no. I wanted to say this was nothing. Instead I crouched in front of him and forced a smile that hurt my face. Stay close to me today, okay? He nodded like it was a game. It was not. At the precinct, the officer behind the desk gave me the kind of tired look women get when fear sounds inconvenient on paper. Did he threaten you? He asked. No. Did he approach the child? No. He clicked his pen and slid a report form across the counter anyway. Then there is. Not much we can do yet, Ms. Bennett. Yet. I hated that word. Yet meant after something worse. Yet meant after I was right. I left with a useless report number and a son who deserved a safer mother than the one I felt like. I had just buckled Noah into the back seat when a black SUV eased up behind my car. Adrian stepped out before I could decide whether to drive or run. You should have called me first, he said. No greeting. No softness. Just that cold authority that made anger feel easier than fear. I do not answer to you, I shot back. No, he said, glancing once at Noah through the window, but whoever is watching your son just made himself my problem too. I froze. Adrian lifted a hand, and 2 security men moved into place near my car like they had always been there. My throat tightened. What did you do? He met my eyes, unreadable. What you should have done sooner. I put protection on you. Then he stepped closer and lowered his voice. And if someone is photographing Noah, Claire, that means this is bigger than you think. The first time I heard them discuss Adrian's future like I was not even in the building, I understood exactly what kind of woman his world expected him to choose. I had just finished reviewing floral mock-ups for the Vale Legacy Gala when voices carried through the half-open boardroom doors. Old money voices. Calm. Certain. Cruel in that polished way rich families loved. If Adrian wants the council vote clean, he needs to formalize things with Evelyn now, one man said. Another answered, the Cross Alliance stabilizes succession, donors, and politics. No distractions. Distractions. That was what women like me became in rooms like that. I should have walked away. Instead I stood there frozen, folder pressed to my chest, while Adrian's aunt added in a cool voice, the girl from the hotel was a lapse. Evelyn is strategy. My face burned so fast I thought I might choke on it. I turned too quickly and nearly collided with Evelyn herself. Of course. She was dressed like she had stepped out of a campaign ad. Cream coat. Perfect hair. Smile sharp enough to draw blood. You heard, she said softly, glancing toward the boardroom. Not a question. I forced my spine straight. I heard enough. She gave me a pitying look that made me want to slap it off her face. Then let me save you some time, Claire. Men like Adrian do not marry women who arrive with baggage and trouble. They marry women who protect the empire. I should have stayed quiet. I did not. Funny, I said. He does not look protected. He looks trapped. Something flickered in her eyes then. Real irritation. Good. But it vanished when Adrian stepped into the hallway. He looked between us once and understood there had been a collision. He always understood too much and never enough. Evelyn, he said. Just her name. Calm. Measured. She moved to his side like she had every right in the world, then linked her hand through his arm in front of me. Public. Deliberate. A claim without a ring. Adrian did not pull away. That was the part that hurt. Not because I wanted him. Not like that. Because it reminded me exactly where I stood in his world. Outside it. Beneath it. Replaceable. Evelyn's smile turned sweet again. You should focus on your work, Claire. The gala is going to change everything. Adrian said nothing. But when his eyes met mine over Evelyn's shoulder, I saw it. Not agreement. Not comfort. Something tighter. More dangerous. And somehow that felt worse, because for the first time, I knew I was not just afraid of losing ground. I was afraid of caring whether Adrian chose me or his empire at all. I should have felt relieved when Adrian stayed away from me the next day. Instead, the distance sat under my skin like a bruise. After what I overheard in that boardroom, after Evelyn's hand on his arm and his silence cutting deeper than any insult, I told myself cold was safer. Cleaner. So I kept my head down at the estate office, answered emails, approved linen samples, and pretended I did not notice how often the staff said Miss Cross like her future had already been signed. By late afternoon, I went looking for Noah, who had finished his homework in the library an hour earlier and should have been exactly where I left him. Panic hit fast. I crossed the hall, checked the study, the staff lounge, the front reception. Empty. Then I heard Noah's laugh outside, light and bright and so rare these days that it stopped me cold before I even opened the garden door. Adrian was kneeling on one knee beside a stone bench, suit jacket off, shirt sleeves rolled back once, helping Noah fit a paper wing onto a small wooden glider. Noah was talking with both hands, all excitement, all trust. Adrian was actually listening. You have to balance the nose or it dips, Noah said. Adrian adjusted the tiny plane with absurd concentration. Then show me the right angle. Noah grinned. Like this. See? You are learning. Something in my chest pulled so hard it almost hurt. Not because Adrian looked gentle. He did not. He still looked like Adrian. Controlled. Dangerous. But with Noah, the edges changed. Just enough to wreck me. Noah launched the glider. It sailed 6 feet before dipping into the grass. He laughed and turned to Adrian like the world was simple. Again. Adrian actually reached for it before I stepped out. Noah. My voice came too sharp. Both of them looked at me. Noah first, confused. Adrian second, unreadable. Mom, look, Noah said, running over with the glider. He helped me fix it. I forced a smile I did not feel. That is enough for today. Noah frowned. But he was not busy. Then he said the one thing I had been afraid to hear out loud. He feels like family. Everything inside me locked. Adrian did not move. I took the glider from Noah's hands too fast and said, "We are leaving." I turned before either of them could see my face. But as I walked Noah back inside, I could still feel Adrian's gaze on my back, steady and silent, like he had just heard something he was not going to forget. The morning after Noah said Adrian felt like family, Adrian looked at me like I was running a scam. That was the first thing I knew when I walked into his office. Not from his voice. From the temperature. Gone was that dangerous, quiet softness from the garden. In its place was steel. He stood behind his desk with a file open in front of him, one hand braced on the glass, jaw tight enough to cut. "How long have you been asking questions about Vale trusts?" he said. No greeting. No warning. Just accusation. I stopped cold. What? He lifted a page, then dropped it back onto the desk like. It disgusted him. Do not insult me by pretending confusion. Scholarship funds. Family foundations. Legacy structures. You have been asking my staff what happens to protected assets tied to bloodline. Each word hit harder than the last because I understood exactly what he thought. Gold digger. Opportunist. Woman with a child and a plan. My face burned. You think I am here trying to get money out of you? Adrian's expression did not move. I think you ask careful questions when you want something. The anger came fast then. Clean. Bright. Useful. I crossed the room before pride could stop me and yanked the proposal packet off the edge of his desk. Children's Arts Initiative. Music grants. Scholarship outreach. My notes all over it in blue ink. I was asking about donor pathways for a music program, I said. For kids who cannot afford lessons. Kids like the ones I grew up with. Kids like my son. The room went still. Adrian's eyes dropped to the pages in my hand, then to the highlighted sections, then back to my face. For 1 second, I saw it. The shift. The realization. He had been wrong. But Adrian Vale did not apologize like normal people. He just went very still and said, "You should have brought your questions to me directly." I laughed once, sharp and hollow. Why? So you could decide I was guilty faster? That landed. I saw it. Good. I put the papers back on his desk harder than necessary. This is the problem with men like you, Adrian. You only know how to measure threat and value. You do not know how to see a person. I turned before he could answer, because if I stayed 1 second longer, I might say something worse. Behind me, his voice came low and controlled again. Claire. I kept walking. But the way he said my name told me 2 things at once. He knew he had pushed too far. And somehow, that was not going to stop him from digging deeper. The first time I walked past the Vale Portrait Hall alone, I understood why men like Adrian could love power more easily than people. The corridor sat just off the west wing, quiet and bright and lined with oil paintings of dead men in black coats and cold women in diamonds. Every frame looked expensive. Every face looked proud. Every plaque carried the same message in different words. Blood. Legacy. Control. I should have kept walking. Instead I slowed in front of a portrait of a little boy wearing a signet ring too large for his hand, his name carved underneath in gold. Heir apparent. My stomach turned. Noah would have hated this place. Too still. Too watchful. Too full of people who would measure him before they ever knew him. You should not linger here, a woman said behind me. I turned and found Adrian's aunt standing at the end of the hall, elegant and brittle as cut glass. Catherine Vale. I had seen her once in the boardroom, saying Evelyn was strategy. Up close, her smile looked even less human. I was looking for the West Archive room, I said. She did not bother pretending to believe me. Her gaze moved to the portrait, then back to me. The family does not keep outsiders informed about succession matters. Heat climbed my throat. Good. I did not ask. She stepped closer anyway, heels clicking softly on marble. Then let me be clear without being asked. This family survives because blood is protected. Not diluted. Not complicated. Not sentimental. The warning landed exactly where she meant it to. On Noah. On me. On every fear I had kept locked behind my teeth for 6 years. I held her gaze because losing composure in front of women like this was its own kind of surrender. That sounds less like protection, I said, and more like ownership. Her smile did not move. In families like ours, those are often the same thing. My phone vibrated before I could answer. Emma. My younger sister never called during work unless something was wrong. I stepped away from Catherine and took it. Emma? Her breathing hit first. Fast. Uneven. Panicked. Claire, do not hang up. I really messed up. I closed my eyes for one hard second. Of course she had. Of course life never let one crisis stay lonely. What happened? On the other end, Emma's voice broke. I need money. Right now. And if I do not get it, they are going to come back. I looked down the corridor lined with heirs and ghosts, then over my shoulder toward the closed doors of Adrian Vale's world, and for the first time all day, a colder fear slid into place. Whatever trouble Emma had dragged in, I knew it was going to find me next. The car came at us so fast I did not have time to scream first. School pickup had just ended. Noah was beside me on the sidewalk, his small hand tucked in mine, his backpack knocking against my leg as we stepped off the curb toward my car. Then tires cut sharp across the street. An engine roared. Every instinct in my body went cold. Noah, back. I yanked him hard against me and stumbled, but the black sedan did not slow. For 1 second, all I saw was metal and sunlight and the impossible distance between danger and my son. Then a bodyguard slammed into us from the side. We hit the pavement together. Noah cried out. The sedan skidded past so close I felt the air rip against my face before it shot through the intersection and vanished. My whole body shook. Noah. I grabbed his shoulders, checked his face, his arms, his breathing. Look at me. Are you hurt? He blinked hard, frightened but whole. I am okay, Mom. I was not. The bodyguard who had taken us down was already speaking into an earpiece, clipped and urgent. Adrian's man. Of course. Of course Adrian had put eyes on us even when I hated it. I was still on my knees when another SUV tore to the curb and Adrian got out. He crossed the street like Fury had learned to walk in a suit. Are you hurt? He demanded, but his hands were already checking Noah, then me, his jaw locked so tight it looked painful. We are fine, I snapped, because anger was easier than terror. This is because of you. Your world. Your enemies. His eyes hit mine, cold and blazing at once. No, he said. This is because someone wants access to you badly enough to test my perimeter. My blood ran colder. He turned to the bodyguard. We are done here. Move them. I stood up too fast. I am not going anywhere with you. Adrian stepped in close, not touching me, somehow making it worse. You almost got hit in front of your son. His voice dropped lower. Harder. This stops now. I should have fought him. I should have said no. Then Noah's fingers tightened around my coat, shaking, and Adrian looked down at him with something grim and final in his face. When he looked back at me, there was no room left for refusal. You and Noah are coming with me tonight, Claire, he said. And this time, I am not asking. The safe house was too quiet for a night that should have broken me. Noah fell asleep on the couch wrapped in a gray throw blanket, one hand still fisted in my sleeve like he did whenever fear followed us home. I sat beside him for a long time, listening to his breathing even out, telling myself that was enough. He was safe. For tonight, that had to be enough. Then his sleepy voice, barely more than a whisper, cut through the dim room. Mom? I brushed his hair back. What is it, baby? His eyes were already drifting shut. Is Adrian a good guy? The question hit harder than the car ever could have. I looked across the room where Adrian stood by the window, jacket off, phone dark in his hand, watching the tree line like he did not trust silence either. Go to sleep, Noah, I said softly. I am trying, he mumbled, and a minute later he was gone again, leaving the question behind for me to choke on. When I finally stood, Adrian turned. No audience. No boardroom. No Evelyn. Just the two of us and everything we kept refusing to say. He trusts you, I said before I could stop myself. Adrian's mouth tightened. Children do not waste time pretending. I almost laughed at that. Instead I folded my arms and said, adults do. He looked at me for a long second, then stepped away from the window. I remember that night more clearly than you think, Claire. My pulse jumped. Do not. You were terrified, he said, voice low. But you still looked me in the eye like I was the one who needed to explain myself. I hated how accurately he remembered me. Worse, I hated that part of me warmed under it. I was alone, I said. I was scared, and afterward everything changed too fast. His gaze sharpened. Because of me? I should have lied. I should have kept the secret buried one more night. But Noah was asleep 10 feet away, and death had almost touched him this afternoon, and I was so tired of carrying 6 years alone. I was pregnant, I whispered, the word barely making it out. Adrian went completely still. The room seemed to stop breathing with him. He took one step closer. Then another. Claire, he said, and this time my name sounded nothing like an accusation. I looked up at the exact wrong moment, and suddenly we were too close, his face inches from mine, his hand lifting like he meant to touch me and was fighting himself over it. My heart turned reckless. Then the door burst open. One of his security men stopped short and said, sorry, boss. There is a problem back at the estate. Adrian did not look away from me. Not immediately. But whatever had almost happened between us shattered there, unfinished, and the worst part was I could still feel it waiting. By morning, the almost kiss at the safe house had turned into public shame with my face on it. I knew before I even opened the first gossip link. My phone would not stop vibrating. Private numbers. Unknown numbers. One message from Marisol that said only, do not panic. Too late. The photo was already everywhere. Adrian and me leaving the safe house together just before dawn, Noah blurred in the background, headlines screaming exactly what rich people always called women like me. Secret mistress. Opportunist mother. Gold digger with a child. My stomach dropped so hard I had to grip the kitchen counter. I heard Noah padding into the room behind me and locked the screen too fast. Mom? He asked, rubbing his eyes. Why do you look sick? I forced my voice steady. Bad coffee. It was a lie. A useless one. But it got him through breakfast. It did not get me through drop-off. The second we stepped onto school property, I felt it. The stares. The whispers cut short when I looked up. Then one mother near the gate leaned toward another and said, not quietly enough, that is her. The one with Adrian Vale. Heat rushed into my face. Noah tightened his hand around mine. Mom, why are they staring? Before I could answer, a boy in Noah's class said, my mom said your mom tricks rich guys. Noah went still. So did I. Then fury hit so fast it almost helped. I crouched to Noah's level and said, very clearly, you go inside. Now. He obeyed, but his eyes looked wounded in a way I knew would stay with me. Adrian's car was waiting outside my building when I got back. Of course it was. He stepped out before I killed the engine, one look at my face telling him enough. I can lock this down, he said. More security. Different routes. Media pressure. I laughed once, sharp and shaking. You mean more men around my son? More of your world in his life? His jaw tightened. This is not about control. That is exactly what it feels like. I slammed the car door and faced him fully. Every time you get closer, something else gets ruined. The words landed hard. He took it without flinching, which somehow made me angrier. Then he said, low and final, Claire, this stopped being just your problem the moment they brought Noah into it. And the worst part was, after what happened at school, I was starting to think he was right. Emma showed up at my apartment after dark looking like guilt had learned how to wear mascara. I opened the door and almost did not recognize my own sister. Her blonde hair was tied back badly, her hands were shaking, and the second she saw my face, she started crying. Do not slam the door, she said. Please, Claire. I know I do not deserve this, but please. Every muscle in my body locked. Noah was asleep in the next room. Adrian's men were posted outside because my life had apparently become that kind of story. I stepped into the hallway and pulled the door nearly shut behind me. You said people were coming back, I said. Who are they? Emma pressed her fist to her mouth. Men I owed. I thought I could fix it. I thought if I gave them something small, they would leave me alone. Cold fear slid under my ribs. What did you give them? She looked at me, already knowing there was no version of this that would not destroy me. A photo, she whispered. Just one photo. Noah outside school. I did not know why they wanted it. For one full second, I could not breathe. Then the rage hit. Hot. Clean. Absolute. You sold them a picture of my son? Emma flinched like I had struck her. I was desperate. No, I said, voice shaking so hard it barely sounded like mine. You were selfish. Tears ran down her face. I did not know he was in danger. You knew enough to hide it. That shut her up because it was true. I had spent 6 years carrying every broken piece of this family on my back, and somehow Emma still found a way to aim the damage straight at Noah. I pointed toward the stairs. Go. She stared at me. Claire, go before I say something I cannot take back. She stumbled away, crying harder, and I shut the door so fast the frame rattled. I stood there shaking until I heard a low knock from the living room window. One of Adrian's security men. His face was hard when I opened the curtain. Miss Bennett, he said quietly, we traced a call from your sister. Mr. Vale needs to know. If they asked for the boy by photo, then the boy is not collateral anymore. My stomach turned over. Because deep down, I already knew what he was really saying. They were not after me. They were after Noah. Adrian started looking at Noah the way men like him looked at evidence. He came to my apartment the morning after Emma confessed, not with flowers, not with comfort, but with a file in his hand and that terrible silence that meant he had already moved 10 steps ahead of me. Who knew you were pregnant? He asked the second I opened the door. No greeting. No softness. Just the question I had been dreading for 6 years. I crossed my arms and blocked the hallway. You do not get to interrogate me in my own home. His eyes did not leave my face. Then answer me like I am the man trying to keep your son alive. The words hit hard because part of me believed them. I hated that part. He stepped inside anyway, set the file on my kitchen table, and opened it. School forms. Dates. Medical records I had not given him. A photocopy of Noah's kindergarten registration. You had no right, I said. Adrian ignored that. He slid a candid photo across the table. Him at 8 years old, standing beside a summer lake in Maine, shoulders too straight, jaw too stubborn. Then another photo, one I had forgotten existed, Noah at the same age last month, same angle, same expression, same impossible mouth. My pulse went wild. Stop. Adrian's voice stayed calm. Too calm. I counted the years. I counted the months. I counted every lie between them. I looked away first. I had to. Because the worst part was not the file. It was the grief under his control. The quiet fury of a man realizing time had been stolen from him. He reached for the school emergency contact form next, thumb stilling over the date. You listed no father. No family. Nothing. I swallowed hard. I was protecting him. Adrian's jaw tightened. From who? The answer sat right there between us. From you. From your world. From what happens to children when powerful men start calling them legacy. But I did not say it. I could not. Because if I said it now, this would become real in a way I could never take back. Adrian closed the file slowly, eyes locked on mine. Someone knew, Claire. Someone made sure I did not. His voice dropped lower. More dangerous. And if Noah is who I think he is, then I am done being the last man in the room to know. I knew Adrian was planning to take Noah from me the moment I heard the word guardianship through his half-open office door. I had gone back to the estate to drop off revised gala seating, meaning to stay exactly 3 minutes and leave. Then I heard Adrian's lawyer say, if paternity is established, we should move fast. Emergency guardianship structures. Protected assets. Immediate control of exposure. My blood turned to ice. I stopped breathing and listened harder, which was probably the moment everything broke. Adrian said something lower, too low for me to catch, and then Damien's voice cut in smooth as glass. The mother will resist. She always does. Better to act before she runs again. Runs again. The words hit like a slap. They already expected a fight. They already expected to separate us. I backed away before anyone saw me and moved on instinct after that. Fast. Ruthless. Terrified. By the time Noah got out of school, our bags were packed. Not much. Just what fit in 2 duffels and 1 backpack. Inhaler. Birth certificate. Cash. The old photo box I should have burned years ago. Noah stood in the doorway watching me zip the last bag. Mom, are we moving? I knelt in front of him and forced my shaking hands. Still on his shoulders. Just for a little while. His eyes searched mine too carefully for a 6-year-old. Is it because of Adrian? I could not answer that without breaking, so I kissed his forehead and said, it is because I love you. We made it halfway to Port Authority before the black SUV blocked the curb in front of my car. Adrian got out slow, controlled, furious in that terrifying quiet way of his. He opened my driver's door before I could lock it. Get out, Claire. I gripped the wheel harder. Stay away from my son. His eyes flicked to Noah in the back seat, then back to me, and whatever he saw in my face made his own go colder. What did you hear? I should have lied. Instead I said the one truth that had been choking me for 6 years. I heard enough to know you are exactly the man I was afraid you would be. Adrian stared at me for 1 hard second. Then he said, low and lethal, if Noah is mine, no one is taking him from either of us. Adrian's words should have calmed me. They did not. If Noah is mine, no one is taking him from either of us. Mine. The word kept echoing through me like a lock clicking shut. I got out of the car because fighting through the window with my son listening felt even worse. Port Authority roared around us, buses hissing, tires screaming, strangers moving past like none of this mattered. Adrian stepped closer, not touching me, all that cold fury held in too tight. You heard one legal term and ran, he said. You never even asked what it meant. I laughed, sharp and shaking. Guardianship means exactly what it sounds like when powerful men say it behind closed doors. Noah shifted in the back seat, small and silent, and that made everything harder. Adrian followed my glance and lowered his voice. I was building protection around the child. The child? I snapped. He has a name. Something changed in Adrian's face then. Small. Dangerous. Hurt, maybe. Then say it, he said. Say what you have been hiding from me. My throat closed. I had spent 6 years imagining this moment and surviving by avoiding it. But nothing was survivable anymore. Not after the school photos. Not after the car. Not after the way Adrian had looked at Noah, like something inside him was already waking up. His name is Noah, I said, each word scraping on the way out. And yes. He is yours. Silence. Total. Even the city seemed to fall back for one impossible second. Adrian did not move. He did not blink. He just looked at me like the world had finally handed him the one truth cruel enough to matter. How long? He asked. His voice was steady. Too steady. I hated that. 6 years, I whispered. He shut his eyes once, fast, like that number had hit somewhere no one else was allowed to see. Then he looked through the windshield at Noah. My son. His son. The truth sat between all three of us now, alive and irreversible. Adrian opened the back door slowly, crouched to Noah's level, and stopped short of touching him. Hey, buddy, he said, voice rougher than I had ever heard it. Noah stared back, confused but calm. Adrian looked at him for one long second, then rose and faced me again. Who told you I would destroy this? He asked. And I realized the worst part was still coming, because now I did not just have to tell him Noah was his. I had to tell him who stole those 6 years from both of them. We did not go to the bus terminal after that. We went nowhere. Adrian moved us into the back of his SUV, shut the doors on the city, and turned silence into a weapon. Noah fell asleep 10 minutes later with his forehead against the window, one sneaker untied, one hand still clutching the strap of his backpack. I watched him breathe and told myself that if I started crying now, I would never stop. Adrian sat across from me, elbows on his knees, hands clasped so tightly his knuckles had gone pale. Tell me everything, he said. Not loud. Not gentle. Final. So I did. I told him about the woman who found me 2 days after I left him 6 years ago. Expensive coat. Vale family driver. A message delivered with perfect manners and perfect cruelty. I was told Adrian had already made his choice. That if I tried to tie myself to him with a pregnancy, I would lose before I began. That a child connected to his world would never belong to me again. Adrian did not interrupt once. He just listened, getting quieter in that terrifying way of his. And you believe that? He asked at last. Shame burned through me. I was 22, alone, scared, and pregnant. Yes. I believed it. He looked down for one hard second, then back at me. You should not have had to survive me before I even knew what I was losing. That landed somewhere deep. Somewhere dangerous. But he was not soft after saying it. He got colder. Sharper. Who else knew? I thought of Emma. The old clinic. The vanished phone number. The years I spent waiting for the storm to pass. I do not know, I whispered. Only that someone wanted me gone. Adrian leaned back slowly, eyes fixed on Noah now. His son. The words still felt unreal in my own head. Then this was never abandonment, he said. It was manipulation. Fury rolled off him so clean and controlled it scared me more than shouting would have. And I want names. I should have felt relieved. Vindicated, even. Instead a new fear took shape right in front of me. Because Adrian did not look like a man who had just found his son. He looked like a man who had just discovered a war had been fought around him without permission. When his phone lit up, he glanced down, jaw locking instantly. Then he showed me the screen. An anonymous message. One line only. So the Secret Heir is real. And just like that, I knew telling Adrian the truth had not ended anything. It had started something worse. By the time we reached the estate, Noah was no longer just my secret. He was a rumor with a price tag. Adrian had barely gotten us through the private entrance when the first call came in, then the second, then 3 more in under 2 minutes. Men in suits started moving faster. Women who usually looked polished now looked alert. The whole house felt like it had caught fire without smoke. Adrian handed Noah to the nanny wing staff for 1 hour only, his voice so cold nobody questioned him, then turned to me. Stay here. I almost laughed. That order worked out so well the last 6 years. His eyes hit mine, sharp and dark. Claire, the council already knows there may be a child. My stomach dropped. How? Adrian did not answer immediately, and somehow that frightened me more than if he had shouted. Because someone wanted them to know before I could control it. That was when I understood the message from the SUV had not been a threat. It had been a trigger. 10 minutes later, I was standing just outside the Vale Council chamber because no one had thought to stop me, and maybe no one was brave enough. Through the open doors, I heard an older man say, if there is an heir, he must be evaluated, secured, and temporarily separated from outside influence. Outside influence. That was me. A woman inside added, and the mother must be vetted. We cannot allow some opportunist to plant a child inside the line of succession. My face burned so hot I thought I might shake apart. Then Evelyn's voice slid in, smooth and deadly. Or perhaps that is exactly what happened. Claire Bennett arrived with a child and attached herself to Adrian at the exact moment the succession vote mattered most. I should have run then. Instead I stepped into the doorway and let them all see me. I did not plant anything, I said. My voice cracked once, then steadied. And Noah is not a strategy. Silence hit the room. Adrian turned toward me slowly, fury flashing across his face, not at me. At them. At all of it. One council member leaned back and said, then prove the boy belongs here. Adrian's jaw locked. I felt the floor shift under my feet. Because in that one sentence, they had turned my son into evidence. And I suddenly understood the truth. Telling Adrian had not made Noah safer. It had made him valuable. The DNA test happened in a private medical suite so quiet it felt cruel. No press. No counsel. No family. That had been my one condition, and for once Adrian had not argued. He just arranged it and stood there like a man holding a line he did not trust anyone else to hold. Noah sat beside me in a too-big leather chair, swinging his legs, looking from me to Adrian and back again with that careful little frown children got when adults were pretending everything was normal. Why does everyone keep wanting to see me? He asked. The question sliced straight through me. I opened my mouth and found nothing useful there. Adrian answered before I could break. Because grown-ups are making a mess of something that should have been simple. Noah considered that. That sounds dumb. Adrian gave the smallest nod. It is. I should not have noticed the warmth that put in my chest. I did anyway. The nurse took the samples quickly. One swab from Noah. One from Adrian. Clean. Easy. Clinical. I hated that something this enormous could look so small. When the door shut behind the nurse, silence rushed in hard. Noah leaned against my side and whispered, "Am I in trouble?" I wrapped both arms around him too fast. No. Never. But my voice cracked on the word, because I was not sure what counted as trouble anymore. An hour later, the doctor came back with a sealed envelope and the kind of careful face people wore when the truth was heavy. Adrian took the envelope but did not open it immediately. He looked at me first. Not cold. Not soft. Just steady. Your call, he said. That nearly undid me more than if he had demanded control. My hands shook as I took it from him. The paper inside was only 1 page. A few lines. Clinical language. 99.99% probability of paternity. The room did not spin. It should have. Instead, everything went brutally still. I stared at the words until they blurred, then handed the page back because I could not hold it anymore. Adrian read it once. Just once. His jaw locked. He looked at Noah after that, really looked at him, like the last 6 years had risen up all at once and were standing between them. Noah smiled a little, uncertain. Did I pass? Adrian made a sound that might have been a laugh if it had not hurt so much. Then he crouched in front of him and said, voice rough and low, yeah, buddy. You did. But when he stood again and met my eyes, I saw the truth clearly. The test had not made this easier. It had made it permanent. And somewhere outside that room, people were already deciding what Adrian Vale's son was worth. The day Adrian learned exactly who stole our life, he stopped looking like a man and started looking like judgment. Noah was asleep in the East Wing after the test, finally worn out by too many quiet rooms and too many careful adults. I was in Adrian's study because neither of us was pretending distance still existed, not after the paper in that envelope. He stood at the desk with Damien's file open, one hand braced against the wood, eyes moving over bank transfers and security logs with terrifying calm. Say it, I whispered, because the silence was worse. Adrian did not look up. 6 years ago, a payment went from a cross-family holding company to a private driver retained by my aunt's office. My pulse kicked hard. The woman who came to me. Adrian nodded once. 2 days later, Damien signed off on deleting internal gate footage from the week you disappeared. The room turned cold around me. I sank into the chair without meaning to. They worked together. Adrian finally looked at me then, and whatever lived in his face made my stomach drop. Evelyn's father wanted me politically tied to the Cross family before the succession vote cycle began. Damien wanted me unattached, controllable, and heirless until the council was secured. I could barely breathe. So they buried me. They buried us, Adrian said. Low. Final. The grief in those words hit harder than anger would have. Before I could answer, the study door opened and Damien walked in like he still belonged there. He took one look at Adrian's expression and understood too much too fast. You should have knocked, Adrian said. Damien's mouth curved, but there was no humor in it. I was about to say the same thing to you. The council is asking questions. Adrian closed the file and slid it across the desk. Damien glanced down, and for the first time since I met him, his control cracked. Barely. But enough. You manipulated a pregnant woman into vanishing, Adrian said. You leaked just enough to keep me blind and the council clean. Damien straightened. I protected the line. You were reckless. I fixed it. My skin went hot with disgust. Adrian stepped closer, voice almost quiet. You do not get to call theft protection. Damien looked at me then, cold as ever. You really think love makes her safe here? Adrian answered before I could. No. But from this moment on, neither power nor blood gives you the right to touch this family again. He pressed a button on the desk. Security appeared instantly. Damien held. Adrian's gaze one last second and said, You just started a war you cannot control. Adrian did not blink. No, he said. I just ended your place and mine. The security breach came less than an hour after Adrian promised me he would handle everything. By the time I reached the hallway, the panic was already a living thing, crawling up my throat. The front doors were wide open, and a man in a dark coat was standing too close to Noah, who had wandered toward the front yard to play. The stranger looked at Noah, then at me, before slowly reaching into his jacket. You need to come with me, he said, voice too calm for the situation. I stepped forward, panic making my hands shake. What do you want with him? The man smiled like a predator who had just been given permission. I need the boy. No questions. That was the moment everything split apart. I grabbed Noah and shoved him behind me. You stay with me, I said, voice barely holding. Do you understand? His wide eyes met mine, filled with terror, but he nodded. I took a step back. The man took one forward. Don't make this harder than it needs to be, he said, his voice a low growl. The tension cracked in a way I could feel all the way to my spine. Then Adrian's voice sliced through the air. You will not touch him. The man froze. Adrian stepped into view, moving with the deliberate, terrifying calm of someone who was used to making threats that worked. His voice was a weapon now. Get away from my son. The man straightened, and for a second, I thought he might hesitate. Instead, he pulled out a phone, dialing something without breaking eye contact with Adrian. It's done. We'll be in touch, the man said before walking toward the gate. Adrian moved fast, one hand on my shoulder, guiding me back inside the house, his eyes never leaving the stranger's retreating figure. What was that? I demanded, the question tearing out of me. Adrian's jaw tightened. The first attempt to take Noah. Whoever wants him knows the value of having leverage. I stood there, not sure what I should do with the growing terror in my chest. And they're not done yet. The words hung between us, too real, too dangerous to ignore. Adrian finally met my eyes. They won't stop until they're sure Noah belongs to them. But this time, we stop them before they try again. The morning after the attempted abduction, the house felt more like a fortress than a home. Adrian had locked down every entrance, installed extra security, and told me, in no uncertain terms, that we weren't leaving until he knew exactly who was pulling strings. But even with all his power, I couldn't shake the feeling of being a pawn in a game I didn't understand. I stood in the kitchen, trying to make sense of the news from the estate. The Cross family had ramped up their pressure, a new set of demands coming from Evelyn's camp. They wanted a guarantee that Noah's existence would not destabilize the Vale's position, no messy scandals, no disruptions. Adrian had told me to stay put, but the longer I waited, the more I felt like the walls were closing in. You're not going anywhere, Adrian said when he found me pacing the hall later that day. His voice was calm, too calm, and I hated that it gave me no choice but to listen. Until we know what we're dealing with, this is the safest place for Noah. I didn't look at him. Safe for who? You? He didn't answer immediately. He didn't need to. He was right, I knew that. But the idea of staying locked inside felt like being in a cage. I turned, walked to the window, and looked out over the grounds. I'm not your prisoner, Adrian, I said quietly. His footsteps were behind me in an instant. You're my responsibility, he said, voice low and fierce. This is bigger than both of us now. I couldn't argue with that. I wanted to. I wanted to say that he had no right to make these decisions, but I couldn't find the words. And if someone tries again? I asked, my voice betraying me. Then we deal with it, Adrian said, a promise wrapped in cold steel. And that's when I realized, I had already chosen. I had already let him pull me into this fight. And now I couldn't turn back. Before I could respond, my phone rang. The name on the screen was enough to make my heart freeze. Emma. I answered without thinking. What did you do? I demanded. She didn't hesitate. I've made things worse, Claire. They know everything.